Keth-9 materialized in the dense forest of what humans called the Pacific Northwest, his bioadaptive camouflage, immediately adjusting to mimic the bark patterns of the surrounding Douglas firs. The infiltration suit fed data directly into his neural cortex: atmospheric composition optimal, gravitational variance negligible, electromagnetic interference minimal. Everything proceeding according to protocol. The hierarchy had chosen him for this reconnaissance mission due to his exceptional analytical capabilities and emotional suppression protocols. His species, the Vorth, had evolved beyond what they considered the primitive chaos of uncontrolled feelings. Their society operated on pure logic, efficiency, and collective purpose. Individual desires were chemical aberrations, corrected through neural conditioning from birth. Primary objective: assess human military capabilities and resource extraction potential. His mission briefing echoed in his enhanced memory. Secondary objective: identify exploitable weaknesses in human social structures. Duration: 30 planetary rotations maximum. Keth-9 initiated his first phase observations, monitoring human settlements through their primitive electromagnetic communications. The data streams revealed what his commanders expected: a fractured species engaged in constant territorial disputes, wasting resources on irrational pursuits, governed by the very emotional instabilities the Vorth had eliminated from their own evolution. But something in the data patterns struck him as irregular. 3 days into his mission, while conducting atmospheric readings near a human settlement called Portland, Keth-9 encountered an unexpected anomaly. A small human child had become separated from her familial unit and was producing distress vocalizations near a rapid-flowing water source. Standard Vorth protocol dictated observation without interference. The survival or death of individual specimens held no strategic value. Yet, as Keth-9 watched, something unprecedented occurred. Multiple unrelated humans converged on the child's location. They didn't analyze cost-benefit ratios or assess genetic value. They simply helped. Strangers invested energy and resources in another's welfare without expectation of return. The rescue operation involved 7 humans, including one who entered the dangerous water current at considerable personal risk. Keth-9's analytical protocols flagged this as an evolutionary disadvantage. Resources expended on genetically unrelated individuals violated basic survival mathematics. He documented the incident as evidence of human irrationality, but found his memory returning to it repeatedly. The anomalies multiplied. He observed humans creating elaborate structures that served no survival function, objects they called art. He watched them gather in groups to produce rhythmic sounds and coordinated movements they termed music and dance. Most puzzling, they would combine specific sequences of mouth sounds called words to construct abstract narrative stories that existed nowhere except in their minds. According to Vorth science, these behaviors represented massive inefficiencies. Yet the humans engaging in these activities showed elevated mood indicators and increased social cohesion. Their irrational behaviors somehow enhanced group survival rates. Keth-9's mission parameters began requiring uncomfortable adjustments. On day 12, while observing a human educational facility, he witnessed something that caused actual malfunctions in his analytical matrices. A young human was struggling with mathematical concepts. Instead of abandoning the inefficient individual, the group's instructor invested additional time and resources. More significantly, other young humans voluntarily assisted, sharing their own knowledge without compensation. The Vorth had eliminated such wasteful behaviors through genetic optimization. Their society functioned with perfect efficiency. Each individual performed their designated role. Consumption was calculated to precise requirements. Reproduction was managed through controlled genetic selection. There was no conflict, no waste, no unnecessary emotional turbulence. But watching the human children's faces light up when their struggling peer finally grasped the concept, Keth-9 experienced something his species had conditioned out of existence. He felt satisfaction that had nothing to do with mission parameters. The feeling intensified over the following days. He observed humans engaging in behaviors his training had taught him were evolutionary dead ends. They cared for elderly members who could no longer contribute productive labor. They invested enormous resources in creatures called pets that provided no utilitarian function. They created and preserved beauty for its own sake. Most incomprehensible of all, they loved. Keth-9 documented hundreds of instances where humans made objectively disadvantageous choices based purely on emotional attachments, parents sacrificing optimal career advancement for offspring welfare, individuals refusing profitable opportunities to remain near chosen social bonds, entire communities organizing around shared values rather than maximum efficiency. By Vorth standards, humanity should have driven itself to extinction within generations. Instead, they had spread across their entire planet, developed sophisticated technologies, created complex art forms, and maintained social structures that, despite their apparent chaos, had sustained their species for millennia. Their inefficient emotions weren't evolutionary mistakes. They were the foundation of unprecedented adaptability and innovation. On day 23, as Keth-9 prepared his preliminary report for the hierarchy, he faced an unprecedented crisis. His mission briefing had assumed human weaknesses would be obvious targets for exploitation. Instead, he had discovered that their greatest apparent weakness, their capacity for irrational emotional attachment, was actually their most profound strength. More disturbing, he had begun experiencing these emotions himself. The suppression protocols that had governed his entire existence were failing. He found himself enjoying the sound of human laughter. He felt concern when he observed their distress. He had developed what humans might call fondness for particular individuals he had observed, despite never interacting with them directly. When his extraction signal arrived on schedule, Keth-9 faced a choice that would have been impossible for any properly conditioned Vorth. He ignored it. Standing in the same forest where he had materialized 30 days earlier, Keth-9 composed his final transmission to the hierarchy. Mission parameters require revision. Human weaknesses are inseparable from human strengths. Further study needed. Extending reconnaissance indefinitely. He deactivated his communication array and removed his bioadaptive camouflage. For the first time in his existence, Keth-9 wanted something beyond mission completion. He wanted to understand what it meant to be inefficient, irrational, and beautifully, chaotically human. Deep in the forest, a Vorth scout took his first steps toward becoming something his species had never imagined. An individual who chose love over logic, connection over efficiency, and wonder over certainty. He had finally learned what made humans dangerous, not their weapons or their numbers, but their incredible capacity to transform even their enemies into family.